Hello, Duke fans. Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily podcast for all things Duke Blue Devils news, just like every day. We thank you so much for tuning in to our show here today and getting your latest on the Duke Blue Devils. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Just like every day, happy to chat here with you guys. We're going to give you a little bit of a preview over the next week for Duke basketball. So as most fans know at this point, Duke took down the number 20 ranked Clemson Tigers over the weekend, 67-54 at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Was a fantastic defensive effort from the Blue Devils, limiting the Tigers to 35% shooting from the floor and 6 of 24 from three-point range. That's a 25% clip. Duke wins 67-54, limits the Tigers to its lowest point total all season, those 54 points, as well as the first time this season Clemson has been held to under 60 points. As we said on yesterday's show, more of a crucial game for Duke to win than it seems like at first glance. At first glance, feels like a resume-boosting victory against a ranked opponent, which it is in some sense. But as far as the net rankings go, which is one of, if not the most important evaluation tools the selection committee uses come Selection Sunday, that was actually a quadrant 2 victory for Duke. Clemson ranked outside of the top 30 of the net, and for a game to classify as a quadrant 1 game for the home team, the opponent must be ranked inside the top 30 of the net. That was not the case for the Clemson Tigers. Again, a talented team, a ranked team, just hadn't really faced too much elite competition to boost itself in those computer numbers. But nonetheless, Blue Devils are now 8-2 over AP top 25 opponents this season, more than any other program in college basketball. Right behind the Blue Devils is Arizona with 6. Duke primed for a jump in the AP poll at the beginning of this week. Today, when the new AP poll comes out, Duke has already jumped in the net rankings. Duke is now number 2 in the net rankings behind Michigan. Duke now 10-2 in quadrant 1, 15-2 in the first 2 quadrants, 12-0 at home, and 8-1 in true road games. Duke only trails Michigan in the net and has the most quadrant 1 victories in the country as the net rankings currently stand. Duke has 10, Michigan and Arizona both with 9. But again, Duke continuing to bolster that elite resume. Next up for the Blue Devils stay at home. They will face Syracuse on Monday, February 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Syracuse, one of the weaker teams in the ACC, 15-11 overall, 6-7 in league play. After losing 6 of its last 7 games, Syracuse has won 2 in a row. It's taken down California 107-100, and then SMU 79-78, and a bit of a shocking result around the ACC over the weekend. SMU at the moment, a fairly comfortable tournament team, and Syracuse not in that position, but able to squeak out a win against the Mustangs at home. Now, Syracuse will first take on Duke, then will take on North Carolina, so a bit of a difficult 2-game stretch, but Syracuse has been in some matchups that it's been in position to win, especially early in the season. It lost to Houston by 4. It lost to Kansas by 11 back in November during Feast Week. And, early on in the season, it's a team that has a lot of talent with guys like Nate Kings, JJ Starling, Keon Anthony, son of Carmelo Anthony, was a big factor for them early. He hasn't played as much throughout his freshman campaign with the Orange, but nonetheless, Syracuse kind of, right at the middle sort of echelon of the ACC standings. Syracuse currently number 69 in the net, 1-6 in quadrant 1, 3-9 or 4-9 in quadrant 2, or across the first 2 quadrants, and then 11-2 across quadrants 3 and 4. Syracuse's lone quadrant 1 victory is a home win over Tennessee, which is a pretty solid victory. That came 62-60. Some not great losses for the Mustangs as well, specifically in conference play. In quad 2 alone, Syracuse is 3-3. All of those losses have been in league play. One, a home loss to Clemson, a home loss to Virginia Tech, and a home loss to Miami. 2 quadrant 3 losses for the Orange, also coming in quadrant 3, or also coming in the ACC. I apologize. Fell at home to Hofstra. I apologize, and then fell on the road to Boston College, which is one of the worst power conference teams. So Syracuse, not a strong team by the numbers. According to KenPom, 79th nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency, 68th nationally in adjusted defensive efficiency. Should be a game that Duke is able to handle. Duke is 12-0 at home this season. Should be able to take down the Orange. And Similar to what it was last week leading up to Duke State with North Carolina that they ultimately lost on a buzzer beater Seth Trimble 3 last Saturday. This kind of feels like a warm-up game for the Blue Devils for next Saturday, February 21st, in what could be the best game of the entire college basketball season. Next Saturday on February 21st at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time at Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., Duke will take on current number 2 Michigan. So for some background, this pod is being recorded on Sunday night, February 15th. The Associated Press Top 25 will come out on Monday when this podcast airs. Michigan presumably will become the number 1 team in the country after current number 1 Arizona fell at home to number 16 Texas Tech 78-75 on Saturday night. Michigan likely to jump into that number 1 spot, and there's a very real chance that Duke can move up to that number 2 spot, jumping up to number 4 after landing another ranked victory. So there's a chance that next Saturday there is a game between the number 1 team in the country and the number 2 team in the country. As the net rankings currently stand, that is the case. Michigan is number 1 in the net as of now, and Duke is number 2 in the net. So quite possibly the best game of the entire college basketball regular season coming next Saturday night between the Blue Devils and the Wolverines. Michigan has arguably been the most dominant team in the country. Early on in the season, they seemed like one of the most dominant teams in recent memory. As we currently stand, Michigan is 24-1 overall, 9-0 in quad 1. Their only losses in quad 2, oddly enough, that was to Wisconsin at home. But 9-0 in quad 1, 18-1 across the first 2 quadrants, and 6-0 through quads 3 and 4, 12-1 at home, 8-0 in true road games, 4-0 on neutral floors. One of the most complete, one of the biggest, one of the longest teams in college basketball, and obviously will give Duke a lot of problems down low with the amount of size they have. Michigan has an elite 3-man front court of Yaxel Lendeborg, Morris Johnson, and Ade Mara. Arguably, they're 3 best players on the team, but the team's leading scorers and rebounders. Yaxel Lendeborg is probably the 2nd best player in the entire country behind Cam Boozer. Lendeborg leading the Wolverines in scoring and rebounding and passing at 14.4 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 3.1 assists a game, also contributing 1.2 steals and 1.4 blocks. And Morris Johnson is a guy coming over from Illinois who has generated a ton of NBA draft buzz with his play throughout this season as an upperclassman. 13.6 points, 7.2 rebounds, 1.4 blocks, and 1.2 assists for him. And Ade Mara at 7 feet tall is one of, if not the best, passing big men in the entire country. He is an elite passer, especially at his size. 2.4 assists a night for Ade Mara to go, along with 11.3 points and 7.0 rebounds. The UCLA transfer, but undeniably, Michigan is one of, if not the best team in the country, number 1 in the net, number 1 at KenPom, and probably going to be the number 1 team in the AP poll come Monday. According to KenPom, Michigan is number 4 in adjusted offensive efficiency, number 1 in adjusted defensive efficiency. As we currently stand with KenPom, Duke is number 10 in adjusted offensive efficiency and number 2 in adjusted defensive efficiency. So by the numbers, the 2 best teams, the 2 best defensive teams in college basketball getting ready to face off next Saturday between Duke and Michigan, and quite possibly what could be the best game of the entire season, and a game that fans will be tuned in for. And there's a chance that come Monday, there is a matchup set between the top 2 teams in the net, top 2 teams in the AP poll, the top 2 teams at KenPom. That is Duke and Michigan in all 3 of those facets. Who knows how it's going to shake up after Arizona loses, how far they're going to drop, because Arizona still only has 2 losses on the season, and those losses are to Kansas and to Texas Tech. But the loss coming at home to Texas Tech will pay dividends. Will Duke jump up to number 2? Who knows? But that's where we stand right now. This Monday night bout for Duke against Syracuse hopefully serves as a tune-up game for its date with Michigan and Washington, D.C. on Saturday. This will be a quadrant 1 or quadrant 2 game for the Blue Devils against Syracuse. Obviously will be a quadrant 1 opportunity against the Wolverines. Best game in the country of the season so far, and maybe the top 2 players in the sport facing off between Cameron Boozer and Yaxel Lendeborg. That is going to do it for us here today at the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, giving you guys an update on a little bit of what to expect from the Blue Devils over the next week on the court. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as Duke beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Thank you so much for tuning into our show, just like every day. Make sure to check us out at si.com/college/Duke to get everything the latest on the Duke Blue Devils. Once again, my name is Hugh Strain, and I'll see you tomorrow.